Isaac, thank you for the pep talk for everyone. I feel like you were my keynote speaker because we're talking about very similar things. And to get everyone in the right headspace and even body space, I want everyone to stand up and find some room because we're going to need at least an arm's length away from everyone. And we're just going to do a simple breathing exercise because as you can see, things are going to get personal pretty fast. And I want to make sure that everyone has some breath in them and is in tune with themselves because we're going to really go in. So everyone with me, take a deep breath in. Bring your hands above your head. So in and out. Yeah? Everyone feel good? Do we need to do it a few more times? I only have 20 minutes. Well, thank you for that exercise. You guys can all have a seat. Does everyone want to do some yoga now? Everyone was thinking that's what I was getting into. We are going to talk about introspection and the more mindfulness approach that yoga offers, but I'm going to talk about it from a more creativity perspective, from an artist's point of view. But before I do, we were all standing up. Now I'm putting you on a plane. And I'm going to tell you a story. It was about a year ago. And I was boarding this plane in New York City, and I was walking down the aisle, sending last-minute emails, as I'm sure we're all really familiar with, because we know we're losing that Wi-Fi soon and the data soon. And I was so consumed by sending these last-minute emails. And I plopped myself in a seat, finally finished them up, and could finally breathe. Deep breath in and out. And I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I looked up to a bit of a disgruntled traveler who said, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, but you're sitting in my seat." Sure enough, I was so consumed that I sat in the wrong seat. And it happened for 3 reasons. First, I wasn't paying enough attention to my ticket, which was right in my hand, or my surroundings. Second, I was walking down that plane aisle as if on autopilot, not living in the present moment. And third, I was unclear in my ultimate intention, which was my destination. And so I think I rolled my eyes. I don't even remember what I do. I get nervous easily and I blush, so I'm sure I was bright red. And I apologized, and I laughed my way to the right seat. But I wasn't able to shake off a little bit of a rude awakening. And you see, it was in this moment that I realized, gosh, not only was I sitting in the wrong seat on this plane, I was occupying a seat in life that wasn't my own. I was walking through life as if on autopilot, climbing a career trajectory without an ultimate destination, and completely lost without purpose. Which is really ironic because providing purpose, clarity, vision were things that I did on a daily basis for big brands in New York City for years. I was a strategist, working with the top talent, working with brands like Nike, NBC, Universal, and more, helping them clarify their story in the world. Meanwhile, over here at Megan Koval headquarters, it was a hot mess. I mean, I might have looked shiny on the outside, but on the inside, I was a PR nightmare. And I like to say it's the passionate heart and practical mind. And they were completely at odds, butting heads years after years after years about talking about my career trajectory. And for some reason, my practical mind always won. Even though I'm an artist at heart and I went to school as an artist, but the recession hit and my practical mind went into overdrive and said, "No, Megan, you're going to the marketing direction and you're going to be a strategist because it's the right thing to do." And so this small moment was the catalyst for a massive awakening in my life. I quit my 9-to-5 job and went completely AWOL, embarking on an internal quest to align my internal values with my external path. And if you look up AWOL in the dictionary, because I know that there's different connotations around the world, I learned this last week when I was in Paris, and they say déserteur, and I was like, well, not quite. It's absent from one's post, but without the intent to desert. And so when I say AWOL, I mean that I had to remove myself from a seat that I had taken that wasn't mine, but with the full intent to discover one that was truly a more purposeful path to bring greater value to the world. And so I combined the 2 worlds that I knew, or was in actively, which was AWOL Strategy. And it was a process that I had to take myself on, which was an inward expedition using brand building strategy tools and all of the processes that I had built for all of these people in the past on myself to awaken a new advantage for me to then clarify to the world. And I decided to start coloring which I think sounds a little unusual. I think some people, they write, or they reflect, or they meditate, or they breathe, like we did at the beginning. And my breath is drawing. And so I decided to create all these different introspective doodling exercises, kind of like Zentangle. And I started to share them with the world. And I realized, how can I blend my love to travel the world through this introspective process? And so I decided to create these tools, and what happened was people around the world were reaching out to me because I was just showing them online, usually on my social media accounts. And people all over the world were, what I thought, wanting brand building help, were actually wanting personal help. And a lot of them have, they're founders of their companies, but they want to understand, how can I put more of myself in my pursuits of my company? And so I began to help all these people around the world this past year, and what I found is that through inspiring and helping others to clarify my path, I found my true calling, which is pathfinding. If I didn't sit in the wrong plane seat that day, or the wrong path in my life, I don't think I'd be here today. So why am I here today? As a pathfinder, nothing lights me up more than helping others clarify their pursuits so they can prosper in the world. And my greatest pride and joy is when I get to help those who possess an unshakable curiosity for growth and purpose. And these are usually the people who are off the beaten path, creating new ventures, or living an alternative lifestyle based off of frustrations with conventional structures. And if it's not obvious by now, I'm talking about all of you. And I like to call you the wild ones. You see, I believe it's in your ability to carve your own path in this world that is your greatest gift, and one the world should see, learn, and benefit from. I know that taking on any personal projects right now might feel daunting, overwhelming, or not that important. But hopefully at the end of these 20 minutes, you'll not only know what a personal brand is, but you'll also see how it can add value to your path today. So the big question, what is personal brand? Has anyone heard of a personal brand? Yep, some hands. Wow, a lot of you. Okay. So I'd like to speak to a lot of you after this talk if you have a different connotation of the personal brand that I'm talking about. But first I want to talk about a quote from a founder I find inspiring, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of now. Jeff Bezos, founder and CEO of Amazon, says that your brand is what others say about you when you're not in the room. Your brand is what others say about you when you're not in the room. As an empath, I immediately think of, okay, what are all the feelings that I've felt when I've accidentally overheard someone talking about me when I'm not in the room? Or I have not accidentally. And I summarize it as this. Your personal brand is what you overhear that will punch you in the gut or melt your heart. And when it melts your heart, you know that's your magic. And I like to call this your flame. We all have a magical flame within us. And your reputation is created from this fire within. I'm not talking about passions. I'm talking about ways that you share your soul with the world. I hope I'm not getting too woo. But let me know if you're following. These are ways that when you walk into a room, people are just energetically attracted to you. You're completely aligned with who you stand for and how you add value to the world. And people sense that. Now let's talk about what happens when it punches you in the gut. Not my favorite subject to talk about. But I'm sure we've all been in a room where we've overheard things that are said about us that weren't intended for our ears. And yes, there's going to be statements that are just mean, cruel, and really don't have that much truth to it. And these are the statements that with time we can easily just brush away, because they're really not true. And then there's the statements that make us cringe, because deep down we know they're true. And these are the ones we can't shake off. These are called painful truths. To give you an idea, let me share with you a personal story of my own painful truth. It was a year ago, and I was learning how to sail. And it was a packed trip with written exams, drills, practices, all with the intent to be able to carry the captain's license. To say that I was nervous was and is an understatement. And it was about halfway through the trip, and we had all done, all of us that were learning, a lot of the drills successfully. And it was a busy marina, and the captain came up to me and said that I'm going to be the one responsible for taking us out of this busy marina this morning. And even though I had done it successfully multiple times day prior, my eyes grew wide in fear, and I lacked the confidence in myself to be able to perform this task. And the instructor sensed that, and he said, "You know, not all of us are meant to be captains. If you want to just sit back and relax and enjoy this trip like you would a vacation, that's absolutely fine." And I was livid. I mean, how could he so easily not believe in my abilities to perform this task? I mean, I had come all this way, right? I needed an instructor to be able to tell me that I can do this, right? That's what they're there for, so I thought. And so with all these things going through my head, I went down to my cabin because I was pissed. I was upset. I hadn't come all this way just to be told I can't do something. And so I collected myself, and I went back up, and as I was walking righteously up those cabin steps, I overheard the instructor talking to another student about his serious concern and my lack of confidence to become a captain. Obviously, you need a ton of confidence to be a captain. And yeah, overhearing this really hurt, but what stung was how true it was. You see, he held up a mirror to a painful part of my identity that was inhibiting my growth. He struck an honest nerve and a repetitive truth that kept coming up again and again. In my life, performance reviews, those things we don't like to hear, and all of these things that continue to cloud my path. And it was in this moment that I had a choice: either suck it up or let this painful truth continue to control my path. And there was something about this moment where I was just so tired of this story, and I knew that I needed to change my narrative. But it was in this moment that I finally realized I was the one in control of this story and this narrative. And so I walked myself up those stairs, I took the helm, gave the skippers my commands, and I took us out of the marina without a scratch. Because the thing is, when you learn how to turn your painful truths into a strength instead of something to run away from, it causes an awakened advantage in this world, improving your reputation and what others will think about you and say about you when you're not in the room. So this was the beginning of me rebranding my personal brand. And with time, I started to take this mentality outside of sailing, obviously, and into other parts of my life. And I walked away from that course not only with a license, but also with a high five from the sailing instructor. You see, my actions got him to buy into a refreshed identity that I was beginning to introduce to the world. That, wild ones, is the power of a personal brand. So now let's talk about the value of a personal brand. And just thinking about all the things that you've heard, talking about personal branding in general. We know that it improves your reputation, increases business opportunities, and allows you to be unapologetically yourself. And there's some interesting supporting points around this as well. How, on average, employees have 10 times more social followers than the companies they work for. So what people are putting out about themselves, about them, the company, is pretty important. Or how 95% of recruiters say that the job market is only going to get more competitive. So if you don't stand out, someone else will. Or how 75% of US-based HR departments are required to do a search for who's applying to their jobs online before hiring. So what they find out, obviously, is pretty detrimental to the hiring process. But all that aside, I believe there is one reason why all of you need a personal brand, and it is this. Your personal brand will be your anchor throughout your nomadic and remote pursuits. As a location-independent professional, you must be dependent on your personal brand. A consistent narrative to rely on, no matter where you go in the world. This means being able to thrive with a clear vision, strong purpose, and unshakable values. You see, I believe it's because the further remote you go, the more you need to rely on all of these things. So let's use the remote movement, for example. By going against traditional structures and venturing out on your own, you all as a whole have gained global attention and have caused a massively disruptive movement in the marketplace. You're changing policies, you're inspiring people around the world, and you're creating new formats in the most inspiring way. I mean, just look at this event, for example, right? The movement sits so firmly in a truth that the way that we're working is changing, or the way that we work has to change. And this truth has gotten a ton of passionate people like us to follow along and propel this movement in an authentic and true way. And I believe that all of us still have that power to do this in an authentic and true way. for the power within us as well. So now I'm going to walk you through the process that I took myself on, this creative mindfulness that we keep talking about. So when I went AWOL, I didn't really have a game plan for how to find my truth or discover my purpose. And honestly, the first thing that I wanted to do was venture out somewhere, get a plane ticket somewhere, not think about anything, and just go into the wilderness. So as you can see, my comfort zone was venturing out, not within. And so I decided to think of what are my comfort zones, which is drawing, and how can I use drawing to pretend like I'm on some sort of expedition. And so what I did is I decided to treat my internal pathfinding mission like an external expedition. I thought, what if I could actually draw my way to finding my vision, or color my calling? What would that even look like? And so I'm going to show you these, sorry if it's a little small, these drawings that I created, along with the strategic prompts and exercises that I did with big brands for years. Because I was curious to see what happens when you blend these two worlds to really go within. So the first one, as you can see behind me, is a picture of a hawk in the shape of a plane. And the hawk represents the power of perspective and being able to see your path in its entirety. And so the hawk allows you to be able to sit in the right seat and not someone else's, because you have this really clear picture. And so the first thing that I want you to think about is think of the hawk as your one-way dream ticket, anywhere that you want to go. And this doesn't have to be goal-oriented yet. This might be able to make you blush or smile or get you really excited when you wake up in the morning, something really outlandish and grand for your life. So I want you to soar far and wide, and I want you to be able to observe all of the views of your life, 20 years' time, 50 years' time, being able to see the whole picture. I know that's hard, but being able to think about, even like Isaac, you saying where you want to be next year, imagining yourself here, I mean, it's a dream, right? And so having something like that to aspire towards, and then even taking it further, 20, 50 years. So that's when you start to sharpen your focus. And I want you to think about it like a prey, like a hawk, being able to swoop in and be able to change, create, or accomplish something. And what is that you want to create or accomplish in service for others? And once you have that idea, then you start to articulate it and write it as a one-sentence vision statement. And so I was just doing these entangles because I found when I was able to channel creative mindfulness, I was able to drop my ego, I feel like that's the hardest part, and clarify my path. But the other thing that you can do is you can choose your own creative mindfulness techniques. Like, you don't have to do these drawing exercises. It's just something from an artistic perspective that helps. But it's the questions that you ask yourself that are pertinent. So now that you have your big, grandiose vision, now it's time to pack your bags. Right? So this is the fun part. Now you know where you're going, and you can finally get your branding toolkit. And your branding toolkit are the key items you'll always carry on your back, no matter where you go. So think of these, in terms of the relative importance of having the things that are on your entrepreneurial backpack throughout your whole life, right? You have to make sure your bags are packed in order to go on a trip. And so the first thing that I want you to pack doesn't seem that important. That's the first thing. But it's a camera, because I want you to be able to capture all your breathtaking milestones. So now that we know where we're going, I want you to envision all of the stunning sights that you'd love to see. And this could, again, can be something that may not be goal action-oriented. And it can be so grandiose. But it's pictures of yourself or things you see your business accomplishing that get you excited and ready to go in the morning. Because again, visualizing these things and reminding yourself on a daily basis what these things are will keep you going. And then I want you to take a picture of yourself. And maybe take a picture of yourself now. What are you like before this trip? How are you acting? How do you feel? Where are you in your life? Where are your frustrations? And then take a picture of your stunning after self. What happened after this grandiose trip? What do you look like? What are you doing? Where are you going? Who are you helping? And then when you have that, now let's start to, you have all the dreamy destinations. So now let's make an action plan for them. And this is your map. Because setting goals is like the map for the expedition within, guiding us to embrace our true calling. So when you think about your map, think about still being a futurist. So go back to your vision, see that with the milestones. And then think, okay, so what do I need to actually make happen in the next 5 to 10 years? And then make your way back so it doesn't seem as intimidating. And keep going back until you get to today to start making daily actionable tips that you can continue to inspire yourself with. And it can be, simple things, like I want to learn something new every day, or I want to reach out to someone new, right? So it can be something like that. Thanks. And then, goals and destinations, they're great, but they're useless, especially a map if you don't know which way is north. So I want you to pack your compass. And these are the things that are your values, the things that really matter, equally what piss you off, because those aren't your values, and then be able to have those as you go on your journey. And then we talked a lot about magic. And so I call this your flame. These are your matches, things that are your superpowers. And so you want to make sure that you know what those are, but then also your kryptonite. What are those dull matches that really won't serve you much along the way? And then you guys talked a lot about this, treat your tribe. I believe everyone should always have a candy dish walking on this expedition within them, because people are going to notice that you're standing tall and firm in your truth, and you're going to look behind you, and there's other people following you. And they're taking notice, and they're really vibing with what you're talking about in the world. So I want to make sure that you always have something, a treat. And you guys talked a ton about this. I don't have to go into detail about how you can actually benefit your tribe. And you want to make sure that they're the hero of the story. I know I don't have a lot of time. I'm going. And then you want to make sure that you treat yourself as well. This is a long expedition, a lifelong one, right? There's no such thing as a done personal brand. It's going to be ever growing, ever evolving with you. So have you guys heard the apple a day keeps the doctor away? I believe an affirmation a day keeps the apprehension away. So these are the apples that you can always have in the morning that remind yourself how strong you are, how confident you are, how able and willing you are to do something every day. Rituals, self-care. Self-care is tremendously important throughout your entrepreneurial pursuits. So make sure you have your tent and your water. Okay, unlocking your purpose. This is the big why. So before we talked about your vision, which is the picture, and this is a big difference I want you to understand. Vision, picture. This is what happens. Process is purpose. So the purpose is the why. Why are you going on this whole expedition in the first place? Why does this destination matter to you? And when you're able to answer that question, that's when you have your why. And you've discovered your purpose for this expedition. We are all born to occupy a special place in this world. And discovering, awakening, and benefiting from it is probably the most important thing we can do in this world. And following in the footsteps of other entrepreneurs and businesses isn't your style. And I dig that. And while it's clear you're all one of a kind, differentiation for you is still top of mind. But here's the thing. Before you venture out into the world, I want you to venture within to unlock your greatest differentiation, which is you. This is your personal brand. And rooting your personal brand in meaning and purpose allows for the rest of the world to recognize its significance and follow along. My hope is to inspire and guide you on this inward expedition through the context of truth and wonder. Embrace your wild heart, follow your childlike wonder, and start your expedition today. Thank you.